The bill is set down for first reading. The House comes to questions for oral answer, and the first question is in the name of Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Energy and Resources. Has he been advised whether the Prime Minister agrees with the Deputy Prime Minister that, quote, a lot of us don't like the power bills that we get, end quote, and if so, has he been advised what action the Prime Minister proposes to take to reduce New Zealanders' power bills?
Mr Speaker. Yes.
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Yes, I've been advised that the Prime Minister agrees with the Deputy Prime Minister's actual comment, as I do, which was, quote, a lot of us don't like the power bills we get, but the one thing that will be worse and more wasteful will be politicians running the electricity system. And that'll look cheap for a while, and then you'll find that the technology hasn't been upgraded, that the new generation that we need hasn't actually turned up, and then there'll be a big spend by the government to subsidise something and the prices all go up. I knew, Mr Speaker, that the Deputy Prime Minister was a religious man. I didn't know he prophesied Labour Green policy.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Have the Max Bradford reforms delivered cheaper electricity to New Zealanders as the National Party promised? And if not, why is he so ideologically blinkered that he's tied to a policy that won't lower power prices?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Well, given I was about 12 at the time, it's hard to recall. But I can say yes. Yes, I think they did. Unfortunately, though, what happened was a Labour government where power prices went up by 72%, Mr Speaker. So it's hard to disagree with what Rob Hosking said in the NBR this morning, that the Labour Party was full of power price gouges which took place between 2002 and 2008.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Why is the Minister so ideologically blinkered that he's tied to an electricity system that means New Zealand consumers pay the second highest residential power prices in the OECD, despite two-thirds of our power being generated from cheap hydro, and where prices have risen at double the rate of the inflation? Why is he so tied to that system?
Mr Speaker, it's hard
Honourable
to take
Simon Bridges.
being called ideologically blinkered from a party that wants to re-national...
Point of order, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Down this end of the House, we couldn't hear half of that question because of the raucous noise from the shameful person said, what a shame, and others. So could we perhaps hear it again?
Order. I'm going to invite the member Grant Robertson to repeat his question. And this time there was so much noise, I had trouble hearing the last part of the question myself.
Very good. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Why is the Minister so ideologically blinkered that he is tied to an electricity system that means New Zealand consumers pay the second highest residential power prices relative to industry in the OECD, despite two-thirds of our power being generated from cheap hydropower, and where prices have risen double the rate of inflation since the Bradford reforms?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Well, it's hard to take a criticism of being ideologically blinkered from a party that wants to renationalise the electricity system. But be that as it may, we have a very competitive system. We're actually in Christchurch right now, by switching from the most expensive to the least expensive retailer, one can save nearly $600 per annum, more than that party's new policy would save.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Does the Minister realise that there are 30 states in the United States of America who use a similar single buyer model to the one proposed by the Labour Party? And when will he be auditioning for Fox News, given his views?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
No, and as I've said, you know, if the party opposite wants to reintroduce some kind of Albanian energy policy, that's good for them. But this side of this Parliament doesn't want that.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Has he taken the Prime Minister to task for failing to deliver on his promise to Grey Power in 2009 that his policies would, quote, help constrain electricity prices when power prices rose at least 5 times the rate of inflation over the last year?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Mr Speaker, how can I take the Prime Minister to task when he's in fact met that quotation, given that under that government they went up 72% and under us they've been much more constrained, going up only 20%.
Supplementary question to Russel level. Supplementary question to Russel level.
Mr Speaker, thank you. To the Minister, is the Minister aware of the Māori Party's policy to enact an annual power rebate for low-income whānau, installation of low-cost heating and insulating 10,000 low-income homes per year, including property rentals? And does he agree that government needs to look seriously at addressing the quality of life for low-income families?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
I wasn't aware of that policy. It sounds intriguing, but can I say to the member, I think the best thing that we can do is continue with our pro-competitive drive that we started in 2010, where the Electricity Authority is leading that, and where we're seeing a real competition all throughout New Zealand, where nearly 700,000 people have switched from more expensive to less expensive retailers.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
What does the Minister think of the Maori Party's policy of piloting insulation in homes in Ngāti Porou and Ngāpuhi, two of the warmest areas where Maori live, and how practical is that?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Speaker, it sounds like good policy.
Point of order to your level.
Mr Speaker, it's very fortunate, or some might say unfortunate, that the Minister doesn't have any responsibility for Māori Party policy, and so I think the question's out of order.
That is speaking to the point of order.
Mr Speaker, he's talking about the Maori Party policy before to the Minister in a question. The Minister answered it, even though he had no responsibility, and so he has allowed in my question on the same basis.
And on that basis too, I think the Minister is quite capable of answering the question.
Mr Speaker, it sounds like very good policy, and I think the Maori Party can share in the credit where this government has now insulated nearly 230,000 homes, and will do by September of this year.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
The Minister realised that there is no functioning electricity market in New Zealand under his government's policy, and that Labour's plan will see incentives for new players to enter the generation and retail market and ensure that New Zealanders will save at least 10% on their power bills. Why doesn't he want New Zealanders to save 10% on their power bills?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Mr Speaker, as I said, the member opposite shows some sort of Albania economics understand there. The fact of the matter is that under this government we have a very competitive system. There are 15 independent retailers at work in this country competing against each other, and we've seen that with 700,000 different consumers changing from one to the other.
Supplementary question, Brendan Horan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Is the Minister aware that his own government's figures show that average household power prices have soared in Tauranga at a rate of 15% greater than the rest of New Zealand? And what action does the Prime Minister propose to take for the people of Tauranga?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
People in Tauranga are exceptionally satisfied with the political representation they get, and the kind of quality electricity system they get.
Supplementary question, Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. I have a point of order from Brendan Horan.
Sir, how was that answering the question?
The question was adequately addressed. Andrew Williams, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister, has the government considered New Zealand First's proposal to introduce a 10% discount subsidy from state-owned enterprise power companies for Super Gold card holders and pensioners who are struggling to meet winter power bills, and if not, why not?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Mr Speaker, no. In fact, I've met with Grey Power this week and we've talked through some of their concerns, and I've explained, I think, the system that we have and why it is becoming more competitive today. I have considered New Zealand First policy, and frankly it's almost as loony as the Labour Party's policy. But what they're effectively saying also is they want to see the power generators back in government hands, and I just think that's bad policy all round.
Supplementary question. Order. Supplementary question. Grant Robertson.
Further to the Minister's previous answers, if the electricity market is working so well under the Bradford model that he favours, why have electricity prices continued to rise and rise over the last decade?
Order. Order. Honourable Simon Bridges.
Well, there's probably many reasons, and I don't accept the basic proposition of the question, but one reason would be the way the last government took so many dividends from the power companies, and that's why they're now belatedly trying to apologise to the people of New Zealand with admittedly some Looney Tunes policy.
Supplementary question. Grant Robertson.
Are New Zealand residential consumers paying too much for their power?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Well, every consumer thinks they're paying too much for power, Mr Robertson, but the fact of the matter is, at the moment we have a competitive system where there are options and where we have real security of supply, something actually we couldn't have taken for granted under the last Labour government.
Point of order, Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, while the Minister went in the direction of that question, it was a straightforward question. It wasn't whether New Zealanders thought they were paying too much for their power, it was whether the Minister thought they were paying too much for their power. And he said that New Zealanders did think they were paying too much, but, sir, he didn't include himself in that group.
Let's have the question again, and the Minister can re-answer the question.
Mr Speaker, are New Zealand residential consumers paying too much for their power?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Well, with respect, the question is ill-conceived because it's not a question. It's not a question of the price, but whether it's competitive. And the system today is much more competitive than it was under the Labour government. In 2010, when we implemented our reforms, we've seen it become more pro-competitive. It's still got some way to go, and I think as the Electricity Authority made clear yesterday, it's getting better and better.
Supplementary question, Dr Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. On what basis does the Minister claim that the market is competitive when the same 5 companies control 93% of the generating and 95% of the retail market?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Well, of the many bases, how about this one? In Auckland at the moment, if you switch from the most to the least expensive retailer, you can save $312. In Wellington, $212. In Christchurch, $595. And in Balclutha, $419. That's competition by anyone's measure.
Supplementary question, Dr Russel Norman.
So is the Minister telling us that he is comfortable with a market in which 5 companies, the same 5 companies, control 93% of the generating market and 95% of the retail market?
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Yes, because what the member seems to ignore is that there are, from there, 6 other players who, yes, are smaller, but are offering sharp deals like Opunaki Power and a number of other ones all around this country. We have low barriers to entry, and frankly, I understand there's something like 4 power players at the moment who are looking at coming in. So it is a very sharp, competitive system that, yes, could do better, but is getting better day by day.
Supplementary question, Dr Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, if this market is so sharp and so competitive, then how come, since National gained office, when demand has been flat, the price of electricity to residential consumers has increased by 19%?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Simon Bridges.
Well, there's a number of reasons. One is transmission costs in the hundreds, perhaps a small number of billions of dollars, that it is reasonable to pass on. The fact of the matter is, under Labour Green's policy, we wouldn't see another dollar invested in transmission or generation by the private sector because of the economic lunacy of that policy.
Point of order, Right Honourable Winston.
Mr Speaker, the Minister is required to answer the question he's asked, not to give us his views of other political parties' policies. And he's well into his answer, and half it's now being devoted to criticism of the questioner. And that's not satisfactory.
No, the Minister was addressing the question quite satisfactorily with some connotation. And has the Minister now finished his answer? Question number 2, Leo Wha Amulia Asanati Lole Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Whaftai Lava.
Order. Carry on.
Thank you.